billion shillings, from 5 billion shillings rather, to 3.9 billion shillings. All eyes here behind me, a battery of journalists, the lenses tonight directed towards this one flight that has been in the offing for a very long time. But Kenya Airways, even in the region, faces a huge competition from the bubbly Ethiopian airline. But this makes Kenya the 7th African country now to directly fly to the United States. And officiating, of course, and as we earlier indicated, President Uhuru Kenyatta now hands over the Kenyan flag to Ambassador, the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign Affairs. The flag is supposed to symbolize the flagging off of this particular flight. And we understand that this particular flag will be brought back on Tuesday when this flight will be back. The blessing is up from the President. And KQ hostess are now receiving the flag that will officially declare this flight an airbound flag, a moment of history in the making. As the last of few make their way to the entrance of this particular airline, waving back, happy faces there up, happy faces down, happy faces everywhere here tonight, waving the flag of Kenya, a flag that brews with optimism, a sense of pride, a sense of possibility, a sense of tonight's long-awaited direct flight to New York. Kenya now officially in few minutes becomes the 7th African country after Ghana, Nigeria, Cape Verde, and South Africa to have one route from its capital to the United States of America. A moment of pause as the President waves. I can see from a distance the CEO of Kenya Airways, Sebastian, as well, waving to the crowd here as the band performs music. Moments that signify the hustle and the bustle of years. And in a few minutes' time, we'll have a direct flight for the first time, a KQ direct flight from the capital here in Nairobi to New York. The national carrier, which has been troubled for a very long time, has already projected a 10% growth in its revenue. Another opens, one in history perhaps, that opens tonight here at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This Dreamliner definitely carrying the dreams of this country, the dreams of this part of the country, of the continent rather, the dreams of East Africa. Tonight, the faces here are all happy. The President has waved his finals of goodbyes to the plane, handing over the Kenyan flag to them, and now walks back and joins others, the other many who are equally standing to notice these moments of history. will roll back as well to years of history in the making. A year to remember for the aviation industry, a year that will leave an indelible mark, probably in the flying career as well, of the pilots and the individuals who are flying this airline tonight. The last of final preparations now being done here at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as all gets ready for this particular flight that has had the greatest of thinkers together, the greatest of planners together, the greatest in the aviation industry together tonight to make sure that this happens as it was planned, and seamlessly and effortlessly is it happening as it was planned as well. We were earlier briefed that the flight will be off in 22:55. It's 23:02, slightly past the earlier time predicted. But if this is a nation and a country and an aviation sector that has waited for that long, clearly and surely they can wait for more minutes to allow this flight to take over. Against the loss that it posted, despite a cut of it, is tonight making a roll. The long-awaited minutes here, the plane getting out of our sight slowly and faster for that 15 hours journey from here, the capital Nairobi, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to New York. The tourism sector already projects a 15% growth from this route. The national carrier says it is projecting a 10% growth as well from this particular route. From now, this plane will be in air, making history as well. making Kenya as well the 7th African country to have direct flights between it and the United States of America. The engine, of course, from a clear distance, now rolling to signify that everything here is ready for takeoff. I can see a couple of cabinet secretaries moving, of course, after waving a goodbye to this particular Dreamliner. The band has gone silent, but of course the noise and the enthusiasm that surrounds this particular flight doesn't go silent tonight. I'm in the moment of history as well rose higher. These Dreamliner making Kenya the 7th African country to have a direct flight between it and to any of America's airspace. The significance, the national carrier has already noted a 10% boost and improvement. The tourism sector says there will be an improvement of 15%. The horticulture, the flowers that are being exported from Kenya to the United States have long been on airlines for 21 hours. Now, 15 hours. The Ministry of Transport says this will have a palpable effect on the appreciation of the flowers exported from Kenya. The efforts of close to 12 years of negotiations, persuasions between Kenya and America bearing fruits now with the engine roaring high. Some of the cabinet secretaries I see is Education Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed, Embattled Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Kiunjuri, President Uhuru Kenyatta. They have been driven off and seen off by security as well, after, of course, giving his last of goodbyes and best of wishes to those who are traveling with this historic Boeing that leaves the capital in just a few minutes from now. To Kenya, this is a big deal. This is ultimately an eye-opening to a business arena. To America as well, this is an important route. East Africa's commercial hub here in Nairobi, a 15-hour reduced flight. Passing in front of me as well is Nairobi's Governor Mike Sonko, having a jovial moment just like many others. We inclusive, of course, witnessing this particular historic moment. Remember, the national carrier, even at this time of pride, even as it stands out to fly amidst murky waters that have painted it as a somewhat death-ridden air flight, tonight, in a sense, it also says it wants to prove that its wings are too high, too big to fly with the Kenyan flag. And clearly, for any journalist, for any person covering this, this is a historic moment, one to remember, one to professionally fall back to and witness, recognize, and set as a highlight. The sound of the engine, of course, now getting bigger and louder. The historic Boeing now making small steps, an indicative nature of the steps that were made as well to make sure this particular flight is a possibility. It turns left now to the runway, just showing the many routes it had also to turn to make sure it flies out tonight. Routes that were ridden with claims questioning the capability and the capacity of this particular airline to make sure this historic route is achieved. A roaring engine, perhaps roaring with optimism. In few minutes' time, carrying the flag of Kenya. And from a distance now, it's getting dark pitch. But the light of this particular incident perhaps carrying the day, this night, and forever in the books of the industry, and more so the aviation industry. By the tick of the clock, the flight is getting out of our sight. Cameraman hustling to zoom into it to see and get the last of glimpse, but probably the words it leaves, the movement it leaves in the air will get directly to the eyes of those who have looked to this day, and more so to an industry that has looked to this day, an industry where just 2 weeks ago, if not a week ago, the workers threatened to boycott this particular flight because of a negotiated CBA, collective bargaining agreement, that was not implemented. But tonight, just like that, just like out of our sight now, just as it makes the last of its rolls in the far east of this runway, history is made. This making it the first KQ direct flight from here at the capital of Nairobi, at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, to New York. New in many ways, new in the books of history, perhaps new in the books of the routes of these flights, new in the routes that Kenya Airways will now need to as well ply. This definitely, remember, makes Kenya, the movement of this particular Boeing now getting out of our sight and rolling out, definitely makes Kenya the 7th African country to have a direct flight between it and any of America's states or capitals. And just like that, history has been made. The president paved a goodbye, handing over the Kenyan flag to this particular airline, a flag that we have been informed procedurally will be returned on Tuesday. A flag that was sent to symbolize Kenya's newfound glory, Kenya's newfound route, Kenya's newfound airline route, which is now New York. Remember, initial flights that could have stopovers in other countries could last as far as 21 hours. This flight, which is direct, now will have 15 hours non-stop to the New York. Earlier we were told the flight will take off at 22:45, 55 if not, it's 23:55. Probably this 23:55 gets to the books of history as the moment when the historic flight between Nairobi and New York took over. The benefits of this direct flight already palpable. The national carrier, despite facing its own challenges, says this route will have a 15% revenue increment in the next 1 year. Remember, more than just the airline, more than the profit and the statistics, this takeoff as well is of importance to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport that has a challenge of as well posing itself as a regional hub, a regional aviation hub. This clearly and definitely posing it as one beyond doubts, beyond questions. Flight is a major milestone as well for JKIA, as it will now be the right path, becoming a regional hub to attract airlines to service East Africa, Central Africa. And that also brings the question of improved and beefed up security. Just to recap of what we witnessed, we were in here as early as 1 just to see of the goings, but the security levels and preparations that have been staged here signifying a somewhat first class and an air station rather that has had its own improvements. Remember, Kenya applied for a recognition first in 2013, but it was rejected, urged to invest in infrastructure, urged to improve its own security. Now it seems all that has happened with this direct flight. This being a moment not just good for any lens, not for any camera, but for all eyes as well, as the country glues its eyes to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport tonight for this direct flight. Sound, the ambience of this particular Dreamliner, a Dreamliner that the national carrier says the newly found route will have a 10% increment in its revenue as it roars out of our sights, but gets bigger and larger in the annals of history. And just like that, history has happened. Kenya can now directly fly, and any Kenyan, any passenger, any person, any individual can now fly from Nairobi to New York without having to go past any other country, without having to spend some hours in a waiting lounge. From JKIA directly to New York, the flight is off. Of course, this flight as well aiding the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in its own way, as it intends to position itself as a regional economic hub, a regional aviation hub as well. This, of course, opening a new chapter as well for the national carrier, as it intends and continues its own movements in making sure that those who doubt it will now have an answer to it. Remember, the national carrier as well announced a drop in its losses from a record 23 billion loss 5 to 6 years ago to 3.9 billion shillings loss this year. And of course, on behalf of the entire team that made this production possible, that captured these moments of history for you and brought these live images to your living rooms, to where you are, I am Abubakar Abdullahi, and bye for now.